The ghost of Christmas past stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. "Know it?" said Scrooge. "Was I not apprenticed here?" They went in. At sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind a high desk, Scrooge cried out in great excitement, "Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again!" Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself, and called out in a comfortable, rich, jovial voice, "Yo-ho there! Ebenezer! Dick!" Scrooge's former self, now grown a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice. "Yo-ho, my boys!" said Fezziwig. "No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick! Christmas, Ebenezer! Let's have the shutters up!" cried old Fezziwig, with a sharp clap of his hands, "before a man can say Jack Robinson." You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it. They charged into the street with the shutters. 1, 2, 3, had 'em up in their places. 4, 5, 6, barred 'em and pinned them. 7, 8, 9, and came back before you could have got to 12, panting like racehorses. "Hilly-ho!" cried old Fezziwig, skipping down the high desk with wonderful agility. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here." It was done in a minute. The floor was swept, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid, the baker, the cook, the milkman, the boy from over the way, the girl from next door but one. In they all came, anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couples starting off again as soon as they got there, all top couples at last and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" and the fiddler plunged his head into a pot of porter, especially provided for that purpose. There were more dances and forfeits and more dances, and there was cake, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and a great piece of cold boiled, and mince pies, and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance. You couldn't have predicted, at any given time, what would become of them next, and when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, bow and curtsy, thread the needle and back to your place, Fezziwig cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs, and came upon his feet again without a stagger. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. The cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. During the whole of this, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene, and with his former self. It was not until now that he remembered the ghost, and became conscious that he was looking full upon him. "A small matter," said the ghost, "to make these silly folks so full of gratitude." "Small," echoed Scrooge. The spirit signed to him to listen to the two apprentices, who were pouring out their hearts in praise of Fezziwig, and when he had done so, said, "Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money. Is that so much he deserves this praise?" "It isn't that," said Scrooge, speaking unconsciously like his former self. "He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count 'em up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." He felt the spirit's glance and stopped. "What is the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing particular," said Scrooge. "Something, I think," the ghost insisted. "No," said Scrooge. "No. I should just like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all." His former self turned down the lamps as he gave utterance to the wish, and Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air.